going, everybody? Welcome to General Hospital MV, my GH After Show. Let's get right into it. Monday was General Hospital's Thanksgiving episode, and obviously given the recent events in Port Charles, it wasn't going to be a happy holiday episode, but it did have a lot of heart. Who provided the heart? The Quartermains, of course. After all, this is their holiday, even though it ends in disaster every time. This year, Olivia was determined to give Rocco a traditional Thanksgiving dinner because Dante asked her to. And we all know how that's going to end, so did the Quartermains. You'd think by now that Olivia would know how it's going to end. Honestly, she should have just gone to Lulu's house. I wonder if the Quartermain curse is prone to just the house or anywhere the Quartermains go on Thanksgiving. These are the thoughts that haunt me. Anyway, Olivia thought that this would also be a good time to try and hook Alexis and Robert up. Yes, Olivia, by all means, hook Robert up with the drunk. Maybe they can help each other mend their broken hearts. Come on, Olivia. At least Robert had Olivia's back. He overheard a conversation between Ned and Alexis, and it was obvious that they are hiding something from Olivia, and he put Ned on notice. Good for you, Robert. Suffice to say, Olivia's turkey got burnt, and the Quartermains had to take their party elsewhere. Laura was at the hospital with Lulu trying to get in touch with Luke through Tracy, who we actually got to see. She was on the phone with her, and she was getting ready to go on a plane to go to Amsterdam to try to track Luke down because he's on one of his adventures. I swear to God, that man is going to be on adventures until they close the coffin. Laura was also waiting on second and third opinions from Dr. Patrick Drake and Dr. Griffin Monroe about Lulu's condition. I appreciate the nods to the characters, but how sad is it that there are no doctors on General Hospital that she can go to? I feel like the show has always had like a leading male character that has been a head neurosurgeon, but we don't have one. I mean, Lucas is one, but we don't see him. Obviously, these conversations happened off screen, but Patrick and Griffin both agreed that Lulu needs to be taken to a long-term care facility where she can be more taken care of. Dante was not thrilled with that prospect, and he actually accused Laura of giving up on her daughter. Dante, I'm pretty sure you were married to Lulu long enough for her to tell you about how Laura was in a long-term care facility until she was better. Not to mention your brother Michael was in a long-term care facility for a year, or possibly, I don't know. He went into a coma at 12 and he woke up 17 in a span of a year. It's a soap opera. But yeah, that should tell you that this is where Lulu needs to be right now. He did apologize to her eventually though. I'm sure the news just crushed him. The Quartermains, Robert and Alexis all showed up to the hospital to be there for Laura, pizza and all, and that right there is the epitome of what a lot of GH viewers love about the show. Heart. I swear to God, I kid you not, I ugly cried when Tracy showed up saying, "First we sing, then we eat," and hugged Laura. Oh my God, I was in tears. Jeannie Francis and Jane Elliott are truly like the most amazing actresses on this show. I always say it, Jeannie is GH. Jane Elliott still belongs on the show. I wish that she never left, but you know, she wanted to retire and was willing to make appearances like this, so I'm grateful for her anytime she comes on the show. Jeannie and Jane's acting the next day when they were saying goodbye to Lulu was amazing as well. And that slap that Laura gave Cyrus, so good. We'll talk about Cyrus and Laura later. I have so much to say about that, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, I gotta say, the growth that Tracy Quartermain has made since Frank Valentini took over the show, her character development has been amazing. They truly made her such a nuanced character, and of course a lot of that has to do with Jane Elliott's acting as well, but the writing for her has been consistently growing and developing with that character. But yeah, I gotta say that under Frank Valentini, Tracy Quartermain's character development is probably the only character that has actually had solid development that makes sense. For her to grow into this person that is loving and caring and that has been through so much stuff, and she's so complicated, but it all makes sense where she is now. I mean, the fact that Laura and Tracy managed to become friends during that time is amazing and a really smart move on the writers' parts because, you know, they have Luke in common and as well as Lulu. But yeah, like she's probably the only character that has had consistent good development under Frank Valentini. I feel like a lot of the characters have been all over the place. One example being Samantha McCall. Let's talk about Sam. We've reached an interesting time with this character because recently we've seen that she has not been happy with Jason's lack of communication skills. And I didn't mention it last week because I went on a tangent about something else, I'm so sorry, but last week Sam and the kids and Alexis were all brought to Sunny's house to be safe because of the explosion at the floating rib. Sam was livid. She is now, just now, apparently, questioning her life choices when it comes to Jason. Obviously, she doesn't like that her kid nearly died in an explosion because of Jason's lifestyle. Sam actually confided with Carly that she might not be able to live with Jason's lifestyle anymore when it comes to her kids. She claims that she really loved the normal life that she had with Patrick Drake. And I'm like, Sam, hold on. Because when Jason, who was Drew, came back alive, you left Patrick pretty quickly. And then Drew, thinking he was Jason, left the mob. And when the real Jason came back, you left Drew pretty quickly. So to me, it doesn't look like you really liked the normal life that much. To me, it kind of feels like the writers have ran out of ways to keep Jason and Sam apart. So they kind of went down this route. It really seems left field. I mean, I know that there hasn't been a whole lot of mob violence when it comes to her kids since Jason's been back. But, you know, like, I feel like Sam kind of made that decision that she loves Jason no matter what, and she's going to be his ride or die to the very end. If you recall, one of the first storylines that Sam had was getting pregnant by Sunny, and she was wanting to move in with Jason to keep her daughter safe. I mean, Sam has always been a badass, you know? She was capable of fighting, you know, she's a boxer, she knew how to wield a gun, she went after Jason's enemies herself. So I feel like if anyone had come close to her kids back then, Sam wouldn't even think twice about having to shoot them and protecting them, you know. And then it's I don't know, it's just, when I look at Sunny and Carly's not really that resourceful. I mean, yeah, she can escape a dire situation if she needs to, but she's not like a gun-wielding, like, badass woman, you know? She's just really loyal. J-Sam truly have potential to be a really badass couple that's really good at protecting their kids, but it's like they're doing, I don't even know what they're doing with J-Sam at this point. I feel like these writers have never liked J-Sam. They have constantly found ways to keep them apart. We never get to see them happy. It's just a little bit frustrating because at one point J-Sam were like one of the best couples on the show. Now they're just hard to watch. Anyway, Sam asked Carly what she told her children when they were Danny's age when it came to Sunny's mob life, and she just said, you know, I didn't tell them the whole truth. I just said that I would always keep them safe. And I'm like, Carly, your son got shot in the head and ended up in a coma for a year, and your other son got blown to pieces in a car bomb. You didn't really keep your kids safe. But I guess you're just sweeping that under the rug now, aren't you? I swear, Carly lives in her own reality sometimes. Alright, let's talk about Michael, Chase, Willow, and Sasha. Michael and Willow are still reeling from the truth bomb that they learned, that Sasha and Chase never cheated on them. None of them are really sure where they stand with the other. Sasha woke up in the hospital and found out that she had had a heart attack due to the drugs that she took. Brando had a really good conversation about addiction with her, and I'm almost thinking they might put Brando and Sasha together, which I don't hate the idea of it, but I still want Willow and Chase back together because I'm such a Chillo fan. But honestly, I have doubts about that too. Apparently, Michael and Willow are more interesting, spending hours on end talking about what cute thing Wiley did off screen than, you know, a couple that actually is together and loving each other. Oy. Chase paid Sasha a visit as well, and she would not confess who gave her the drugs. I'm like, Sasha, you nearly died, and you probably should confess because Cyrus is gonna come after you because you know too much. Sasha ain't the only one that he's going to be gunning for though, because let's talk about Mr. Julian Jerome. So Ava was obviously not thrilled to learn that Julian had planted the bomb, especially when she learned that Sunny's cousin Dev was killed. She told Julian to run away and never return, much like Scar did Simba in The Lion King. And then she learned that Lulu collapsed and is in an indefinite coma. And then she learned that Franco, Elizabeth, and Cameron were also caught in that explosion, and she was livid. She returned to Windermere with a gun in her hand, ready to kill Julian Jerome. In a loving way, she wanted him to go quickly instead of being tortured by Sunny and Jason or Cyrus. Meanwhile, Sunny and Jason are trying to figure out how Cyrus is connected to that bomb. They knew that he was most likely responsible for it, but not how. Jason realized that someone must have been watching him in the Metro Court to learn that he was going to the floating rib. Carly remembered hiring someone new, so Sunny and Jason go to the Metro Court to confront that man, and he gave it up pretty quickly. He just wanted to make a quick buck. He was told to call this person and tell them where to deliver a package. That place being the floating rib. He didn't know it was a bomb. He didn't know the name of the person that was on the other end of the phone, but he still had that number in his phone, so Sunny called it, and Julian picked up. Sunny hung up and he was just like, son of a bitch! Sunny and Jason book their way to Windermere, where Ava is holding Julian on the parapet in the pouring rain, and when Sunny and Jason get to the parapet, Julian makes a jump for it. Jason tried to track Julian down, but he couldn't find him, but then we see Julian unconscious on the ground in the rain, and I honestly thought that would be the end of Julian Jerome. Turns out it wasn't. Julian was alive and well and went to Martin Gray's office to try and get him to help him escape Port Charles. Julian did some snooping and found a mysterious photo that we didn't get to see yet of someone that is very important to Martin, clearly, and he uses that to blackmail him into helping him escape. He gets all of Martin's money, enough to have him disappear. To be honest, I still don't think we've seen the last of Julian before the end of his time here. Time will tell, I guess. Cyrus tried to cover his bases by going to Sunny and pointing the finger straight at Julian, but obviously he wasn't aware that Sunny and Jason know the whole story already. I swear, Cyrus's ego is going to be his downfall, you watch. Cyrus does have one advantage though. Sunny and Jason aren't aware that Cyrus knows that Taggart is alive, and that's why I think Julian isn't done. At some point it's going to come out that Julian threw Taggart under the bus to save his own ass, which obviously didn't work. Cyrus is determined to drive Taggart out of hiding, which obviously won't be hard because Taggart can't stay hidden at all. I honestly was scared because I thought that he was going to kidnap Trina again, but instead he actually goes to Trina, says that her father is alive and well, and is just going to let her do the searching for him. I gotta say, it is a smart move on Cyrus's part because he doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to kidnap her. He doesn't have to commit any crimes. He's just gotta sit and watch her and wait. And Taggart's going to come out anyway because he's stupid. Taggart actually got into Carly's face and was like, why isn't Sunny moving faster? This is ridiculous. And Carly pointed out that they didn't have to do anything for him. After everything Taggart did to Sunny back in the day, he should be thankful that Sunny is helping him at all. Not that Taggart wasn't justified, but she's not wrong. But like it or not, these families are connected because Trina and Jocelyn are best friends, so they are doing it for Trina. Speaking of Trina, I want to mention that we got to see Trina and Jocelyn mourning over Dev most of this week, but what we didn't see was them mourning over their teacher, Dustin. And at first I was like, did they just forget, or do they not know that Dustin died yet? It turns out that they actually did write in that they were mourning over Dustin as well, but they deleted the scene. For some reason, GH is putting a lot of deleted scenes in their social media, and it seems that every scene that they've put so far should have been on the show. In that deleted scene, we got to see Trina and Jocelyn talking about how they both had a crush on him, and that Dustin was the one that convinced Jocelyn to write the journal when it came to Oscar. It was a good, heartfelt scene, and the fact that it got deleted is annoying because I feel like most of the fans that have been with GH for many years agree that the heart of the show has been missing. Like, meaningful conversations are always missing, and clearly they're writing them, they're just not showing them, and that makes me worry because I feel like GH doesn't know their viewers really well, you know what I'm saying? So damn it, writers, keep the heart in the show, don't delete it and post it on social media, put it in the episode. I will give the writers praise though, because I'm not all about the tongue lashing when it comes to the writers. I have to praise them for the amount of history they are using on the show right now, because my mind was blown. I honestly like to think of myself as pretty knowledgeable when it comes to GH history, but a lot of that happens to be because of YouTube and all the clips that are on there. You can find a lot from like 1979 onwards, but anything before that is very sporadic. This week, General Hospital went so far back into history that I had to go to the GH wiki page to see if it was actually canon or a rewrite, and it turns out that it was actually canon. I was shocked. So let's get into it. Honest to God, this is the most excited I've ever been to chat about GH with you guys. I've done the show for 4 years. This moment right here is the most excited I've ever been. So let's get into it. So Curtis and Jordan were on their way to Mexico City. They are looking for answers on the mysterious woman that was supposedly in that abandoned house that Cyrus was taking care of. They had seen medical equipment and they tied it to a facility in Mexico City. So they go undercover to get their answers, and Jordan hacks into the computer system and pulls Cyrus's information. They find out that the woman that he was taking care of was named Florence Gray. When they returned to Port Charles, they actually ran into Martin Gray, and their heads started turning a little bit, even though Gray is a pretty common last name. Curtis then meets up with Laura to give her the information and says that they're going to look into this woman's medical records from over 40 years ago, which makes Laura confess to Curtis that she was involved in that redacted case that they were looking into. She confesses the whole story, and Curtis then asks her if the name Florence Gray means anything to her, and Laura says, "My biological father's name is Gordon Grey, and he was married to a Florence Gray." And at that moment I was like, wait a minute, is this actually real? Because I know a bit about Laura's childhood. I know that Rick Weber was her stepdad, and that she was living with the Vinings because Leslie thought that she was dead, but I didn't know, like, who else was involved. I didn't really question it, because I really didn't need to. I mean, I knew that this was probably never going to come up again, but boy was I wrong. So I went onto the GH Wikia page, and yes, Gordon Grey is Laura's biological father, and he was married to a Florence Gray. So let me tell you all about their origins. Florence Gray was the first patient that Leslie, Laura's mom, ever had on the show. Florence was suffering from stomach ulcers that were brought on by the stress caused by her failing marriage with Gordon Grey. Florence ended up going to therapy and told the therapist that many years ago, her husband Gordon had an affair with one of his students and ended up getting that girl pregnant, and apparently the baby died. Turns out that student was Leslie, and the baby that died was Laura. Gordon and Florence Gray had already left Port Charles by the time that Leslie found out that Laura was alive and well and living with the Vining family. So Laura really had no connection to Gordon Grey. She only knew of his name, really, because Leslie only found out that she was alive when Laura was a teenager. Now, returning to the present day, everything is still kind of a mystery, but what is obvious is that Cyrus definitely has a connection to that Grey family, and that he is very well aware of Laura's connection to that family. Which brings me back to the scene where Laura slapped and threatened Cyrus, and he said something to the effect of, "Do what you must, Laura. No one stopped you before." And he was really emotional about that. The guy was almost in tears. Martin Gray was around when that confrontation happened, and he went up to Cyrus, and it was very obvious that these two have a long history with each other. The only real glitch with the story is that Martin Gray's and Gordon and Florence Gray's last names are both spelt differently. I think Gordon and Florence is with an AY for Gray, and Martin is with an EY, but I feel like that can be overlooked and changed. Like, I don't think any of us really care about the spelling. Suffice to say, I really like this story. Man, that was a lot, and I honestly kind of want to leave it here, but since there is a couple more things to talk about, I'll still go into it. Franco got out of his surgery relatively okay, but when he goes to sleep, he hears Peter's voice in his head. Martin had actually gone up to Elizabeth and returned Franco's faux will as Drew. So just when I thought we were finally over this mind-mapping bullcrap, we are back in it again. It's the story that keeps giving, no matter how much we don't want it to. Anna also seems determined to never tell Peter the truth that Alex is his mother, even though Maxie had a lot of questions and Anna had answers for them. I swear to God, if these writers drop his downfall, I'll be pissed off. Just give us what we desire, GH. What else happened? Okay, yeah. Carly went to Sunny and Jason and told them that there's a good chance that Nell was Nina's daughter. She mentions that Jax knows and that he's going to keep it a secret from Nina, which I still think is going to end in a disaster. Jax, just be honest with Nina. You don't want to stoop to Valentine's level. But yeah, that wraps up GH Envy this week, you guys. Clearly, I am very excited to dive into this Cyrus story involving Gordon and Florence Gray. I'm super stoked for it. This is the first time that I feel like GH's history is being utilized properly. I'm so used to it being either overlooked or rewritten, but this is the first time where they're actually just taking canon history and not changing a damn thing about it, but just adding on to it. That is how a soap opera that has been around that long should be handling their history. I actually think it's so cool that these writers went so far back into GH's history and to like an obscure part of it. I mean, this is like two characters that were around for like maybe 2 years, and it happened like 10 years into the show's existence. I mean, the show's 60th anniversary is just around the corner. This is like 10 years into the show. My mom was 10 years old. She probably wasn't even watching GH yet. So the fact that they're going that far back and keeping it canon, not moving a thing about that story and just adding on to it is like the coolest thing that the show has ever done. I mean, I'm probably more excited than I should be, but it's just that I have experienced such PTSD when it comes to the show taking its history and just throwing it to the wind that the fact that they're not doing that and just adding on to it just makes me so happy. What do you guys think about this? I know that I have viewers that have watched GH since day one. Did y'all remember Gordon and Florence Grey? Because I feel like it was so long ago that I'd get it if you didn't. It's such a brief part of GH's history and like probably long forgotten. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a big old thumbs up, subscribe if you want to, and I will catch you guys next week. Peace out.